John since he became appointed to the commission in August of 2005 by Mayor Villaraigosa, who we'll hear from shortly. And Andre, at that time, John joined Andrea Orton, Shelley Freeman, and Anthony Pacheco, along with Alan Scobin, who was the sitting commissioner, and the five of them began the commission in September of 2005. Over the period of John's 8 years as a commissioner, he also served with Ralph Bernardino, Rob Saltzman, Rick Druyan, Deborah Wong Yang. And he served with two chiefs of police, William Bratton and Charlie Beck. He led the commission through the consent decree, 8 years of the consent decree. John was a driving force in getting substantial compliance with the federal consent decree. Led the effort to begin implementation of in-car cameras. I remember the meeting we had in the mayor's office at that time, and John said, "Mayor, we need cameras in the cars." And the mayor was good enough to push that through. And I think that the president of the council at the time was current Mayor Garcetti, who facilitated that occurring. And John also had many other innovative measures as president of the commission and vice president. Interesting, he served 2 terms as president and 4 terms as vice president. He served 8 years. All 8 years he was in a leadership position. And he drove the commission, drove the department to the heights that it's at today. And I think John will never be forgotten for those things. A couple of anecdotes about John. I remember when he first came to his first meeting and we had somewhat of a raucous public comment period. And John told me after the meeting, he said, "You know, I used to be one of them folk yelling at you, and now they're yelling at me. I don't like that." And I also remember the time that John was still with the Urban League and Dave Cunningham was the president, and we had an incident occur in June of 2004 involving the arrest of a young man named Stanley Miller at the end of a pursuit, where Stanley Miller was seen on TV being beaten with a flashlight by an LA police officer. Dave Cunningham, as president of the commission, took me, I was the executive director, we went to John's office at the Urban League, and we had a very frank discussion about that. Little be known that John would ultimately become president of the police commission about a year later. John was committed to reform. John was committed to supporting the men and women of the LAPD. There's a great quote that I copied a couple of days ago. It was Tuesday, I was doing a public records request. Asked my staff for the minutes from 1985 through 1991, I believe it was. April 9, 1991, at a police commission meeting. Mr. Mack, is quoted in the minutes, expressed his support for the commission's action, suspending Chief Gates, and remarked that if the board hangs tough, it will prevail. He stated that the bottom line is to rid the department of racism and brutality, and noted that the community does not want a few bad officers to taint the reputation of the fine majority. I think that was John's tenet when he was in the old Parker Center building and when he sat in this building here at this dais. In recognition of John's service to the city and department, we're here today at the council's determination to name this building the John W. Mack Police Commission Hearing Room. So with that said, we have a few speakers, and based on time commitments, Councilmember Price would like to be first. So, sir, it's your dais.
Thank you. Good afternoon to the Mack family, mayor, chief, city family. It's really an honor for me to join with you today as we cement the legacy of a fierce civil rights hero in our community. He was really a visionary, Mr. John Mack. For everyone that's going to have a chance to walk in and out of this room, they will, just for a moment, be able to walk in John's shoes. He sat at the counter. He carried the dreams of our ancestors on his shoulders. And he fought many battles. But because he never stopped fighting against the injustices and the issues that impact oppressed people, he was always relevant. He was always timely. He was always there. Mr. Mack laid down the framework at a time in history when there was nothing else to lose and everything to gain. And he was not afraid to put everything on the line. He spent each day of his life kicking down barriers that hindered the progress, especially in communities of color. And that's why he will always be a hero for us. Never shying away from the hard work that was before him, he lent himself to many prestigious community-based organizations that supported the advancement of blacks, minorities, and other underserved folks, not the least of which, of course, was the Urban League and the NAACP. But during his historic tenure as a police commissioner, he focused on diversifying the department and implementing progressive changes. And he was able to do them both, right? They weren't exclusive. And we still need to be doing them both. His leadership reaches far and wide across the spectrum of social and economic issues in areas such as fair housing, employment, education, economic development, voter registration, equity, and supporting black excellence. He was not afraid to do that. So we thank you, Mr. Mack, for leaving us a guidebook that encourages us to lead lives built on honor, courage, and to not take no for an answer. Is that correct English? Not take no for an answer. But that was John, and he didn't take no. And all of those are qualities that certainly exemplify him as being the hero that he was. So, John, I know you're in heaven looking down with pride. This one is for you and for our forefathers. We are proud, and we will be an honor, continue to love you, to serve you, and to have you as a positive role model, making a big difference in our lives. And although I won't be able to join you for the duel, for the Herald and Bells, let me just say bon appetit.
Now, if we could have the Chair of Public Safety, the Honorable Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez, come forward.
Thank you so much, and it really is an honor to be here with you all in celebrating this giant of a man for Los Angeles, for all of the contributions, the immeasurable work that he has had and his lasting legacy here, not just in civil rights, and it wasn't just in Los Angeles, it really permeated across the country, and it's because of his steadfast leadership. I want to thank Mayor Villaraigosa for making that important appointment so many years ago, because it was the gauntlet that really helped to reflect how we could both be supportive of a good functioning department and still call it out for the reforms that it was required. And so while John laid down that groundwork, I'm so proud that we have a commission that continues to advance that work today. I'm proud to be a member of the LA City Council that will help to continue to advance that work so that we can assure that the people of Los Angeles will continue to have the kind of service that they are deserving of. But that communities of color that have derived so much injustice over the course of a history in a country that hasn't always met their needs, that we will all collectively do so in the name of this great man, John Mack, here in this hearing room. I'm really thankful to see the family, and thank you for sharing John with us. You know, as a daughter of a retired LA City firefighter and someone who dedicated his life to public service, I know a little something about what it's like to live in the shadow of an individual who was an incredible giant of an individual and well respected and admired. But that legacy continues, and you all are an extension of that. And I want to thank you so much for sharing him with us here in this city, and that we could honor his legacy in such an important and meaningful way, because his work continues and lives on in the actions of the people that both come, who offer some very colorful commentary to the commission, but with the intent of making sure that we are all better in our service to the people of this city. And so for that, I say thank you so much for sharing him with us. And I thank you, John, wherever you're listening, for the work and the legacy that you left here in Los Angeles. We are a better Los Angeles because you served us. And I'm grateful to be in a position to have introduced this motion. I do have a resolution here in the dedication that I'd like to provide to the family as a copy. We have this official copy that will remain here in commemoration of this naming, but I also have copies for each of you to be able to keep with you in celebrating this incredible legacy of a man, this civil rights giant who blessed us here in Los Angeles. God bless John Mack, and thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Now I'd like to introduce the Honorable Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. You, sir.
First of all, I want to say to the Mack family what an honor it is to be here with you once again. I had the privilege and honor to speak at John's funeral, where I talked a lot about him as the drum major, if you recall. It's great to be here with all of you, to the current members of the Police Commission. Great to see you. Obviously, one of them used to be my deputy mayor, Eileen, and to the former appointees to that commission. Let me also acknowledge you and thank you for the work that you did. And same with my good friend, Judge Barot. It's great to see you all here. And Chief, members of the LAPD, thank you for being here. Thank you for honoring this giant of a man. I wanted to tell just a short story about how it all happened. John was a part of my transition team. And the way it worked, you know, you'd throw names on a whiteboard. We'd cover them up at night, lock the doors so that nobody could see who we had appointed or who we were proposing to appoint. And the police commission, remember we were under a consent decree. I had run on the issue of public safety. I knew that that decision was going to be one of my more important decisions and appointments. And so we went through, you know, a month or so. I don't recall exactly how much time. And toward the end, I think maybe the last appointment, I said, you know, John walked in the room one day. I had gotten there a little early, and he looks at the board and he'd been part of the whole process, and then saw his name on the whiteboard. And he said to me, "Who put that up there?" I said, "Well, I did." "Well, I'm retiring. I'm going to the desert." I said, "Not now, you're not. I need you to do this." And, you know, he said, "I've been fighting the LAPD for 20 odd years, 30 odd years. I don't think I'll have the credibility to sit on that commission." I said, "It's precisely because you've been a leader on the issue of police accountability that you should be a member of that commission." And after a back and forth for, you know, 20 or 30 minutes, he finally consented, and I think the city was better for it. You know, that consent decree was not an easy deal. Both Bill Bratton and myself and the commission were focused on that, and the command staff. Chief was part of that command staff back then, and you know, he was the right person to lead, to be a part of this effort. And I can tell you, from my vantage point, I was very proud of his service. You know, I remember another quick story. I remember when I did that appointment, Bill, the chief at the time, was a little concerned. And you know, he's the kind of guy that, you know, not afraid to speak his mind. Neither was I, by the way. And, you know, he said as much, that, you know, he was a bit concerned about it. And I said, "Well, you know, fine." I think you're going to realize what I've realized over the years that I've worked with him. This is a fair man. This is an honest man. This is a man with a great deal of integrity who understands that we need a police force, that the vast majority of the men and women that work for this department do good, run to danger, not away from it. But that, like, all of us, accountability is something none of us should be afraid of. I used to always say nobody's above the law, not a politician, not a priest, and not a police officer. We all are accountable to the law. And I think by the time he was finished, the vast majority of the men and women of this department respected him for the work that he did, respected him for his demeanor. He had to sit on the other side of demonstrations from time to time, and I know that was not easy for him. I used to tell him, welcome to my world. But he was a great human being, and I couldn't miss today. And thank you for having me here. And more importantly, thank you for naming this, not building, I guess, this hall, salon, whatever it is, after him. Meeting room, that's what it is. Thank you very much.
Some would call this room the House of Horrors at times, depending where you're sitting. I think there's some former commissioners and a current commissioner that understands that. At this time, I'd like to introduce the current president of the Board of Police Commissioners, William Briggs, for his comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very few of us who serve as police commissioners will be remembered for that service. John Mack will be remembered for that service. He was a giant among men. He was a legend among civil rights activists. He was a leading reformer among police commissioners. I am humbled to be here today to literally walk in his shadow. When John Mack was born in 1937 in South Carolina, that's the Jim Crow South, the idea that the Los Angeles Police Department would appoint a black man and honor him was inconceivable. Yet here we are. We have a diverse group with us. We have the former mayor. We have the city council chair herself, the daughter of an immigrant who came to this country, who rose above things that others would have found just insurmountable. We have the chief of police here. We have the family of John Mack here, who serve as inspirations to all of us, all to honor this man that you knew as John Mack. So many are indebted to the work that he did, along with the group of men and women that were responsible for creating opportunities for my generation and generations to come. When John Mack started out, he wasn't trying to build a legacy. He just wanted to do what was right. He wanted to right the wrongs that he experienced so that others who came after him wouldn't experience it. He called himself a marathon runner for social justice. He understood that it was the long game, and he was in it for the long haul. John Mack is from a generation that decided segregation, discrimination, second-class citizenry was no longer acceptable. They marched, they sat, they had dogs and water cannons hose them down. They were beaten, they were jailed, some were killed, but they persisted. They never gave up. Like John, this lifetime commitment for equality and social justice is his legacy. John had a commitment for forward thinking. thinking that he could change things. But he wasn't one of those who said to himself, if I yell enough, things will change. He also said, let me get in that room and plan how to make things change, which is what he did. And our former mayor, Mayor Villaraigosa, recognized that in John when he appointed him to the police commission. One of John's former friends, his close friend, Danny Bakewell, said, John and I used to come down here to the commission, and we would yell, and we would demand, and we would ask for change. Danny said, then one day I looked up and John's on the commission itself. What's up with this, John? But John had a plan, and that plan was to help implement the reforms that were needed by the LAPD. And some of those reforms were to ensure that our officers, in their interactions with communities of color, are guardians, not warriors. That's one of the legacies of John Mack. And now, this room where policies that he helped create is named in his honor. I look forward to leading the commission from the John Mack Police Commission hearing room and continuing the work that he started. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce Chief of Police Michael Moore.
Thank you, Richard, and good afternoon, everyone. So the welcomings and the recognition of all of our VIPs are here. I want to also thank every command staff officer, rank and file, the members of our civilian professional staff as well that's found their way here today. It was remarked about, here's a man born in 1937 in the South, and who could ever imagine that sometime, decades later, this department, the Los Angeles Police Department, would be honoring him by naming its Board of Police Commissioners hearing room after him, a tribute to an African-American male. Well, this is the Los Angeles Police Department of today. Not just in the sense of doing it as a sense of obligation or showmanship, but a genuine appreciation for a man that, Mayor, thank you for the wisdom of appointing, and a commission or a city council who approved, concurrence fought, and also a chief of police that while, Bill's hair may have been up a little, he leaned into it. And so did this organization. And that was, as we look past the last 20 years of this organization, I think a characterization that I think is fair. What Mack inherited was some work that had been done. An investment to change this organization through the implementation of a consent decree from your predecessor. A commitment of a city that this department could and would do better. That its accountability, its transparency, its fairness, its equality of treatment of people of all communities could be achieved if it could establish systems and controls, oversight, and practice the best practices of American policing. But I'm reminded that every September, there's 32 teams who start playing football. But there's only 2 that make it to the Super Bowl. They all play the same plays. But the execution is what John Mack showed the wisdom of. To all the commissioners and former commissioners that are here, especially the former commissioners, as has been said, everybody doesn't get to be a John Mack. But as I look across the last 20 years of my experience with this organization, I thank each of you to an individual for the leadership that you brought, and the conversations that we had, the progress that was made. Our inspector generals, as the independent body, the people who could give the commissioner the straight scoop, that could give the rest of the story that sometimes the department may not be willing to give. Thank you for being here today and honoring this man before us. To the current commission, Commissioner Briggs, to Commissioner Decker, your leadership, your continued leadership. Mayor Villaraigosa, thanks for not letting her go too far. They, as a president, vice president, I think they live up well to John Mack's legacy and to his determination, and also his finesse. I met John Mack as a commander, actually a deputy chief, and worked with him through his entire tenure, whether it be out in the valley or eventually over special operations. What I was always struck by was this fierce determination, this man who had a record of reform, a person who would pursue justice, but also a kindness about him, a heart about him, that he was willing to sit down with anyone of any color, of any attitude, and he would attempt to reach a consensus. Even if this commitment to a marathon, he knew that the long ball was much better than the short win. And so we would sit down and talk about financial disclosures. Now you gotta go back 15, 16 years. Something today is an automatic. But back in the 2005 and 6, it was fierce hand-to-hand combat. And I remember sitting with him with gang units in the San Fernando Valley, and him sitting and listening. The critical aspect wasn't him telling, but him listening. But him, by listening, he moved that group. He moved individuals that then moved groups, that then moved an organization. So he recognized that fierce determination alone is someone just yelling, and someone being frustrated, and getting high blood pressure, and finally going, and no longer to be heard or understood. He knew instead how to knit a network of people who didn't always agree, but could come to the common values and move forward. When we go through his tenure, it was the body-worn video, it was digital in-car video, but it then transitioned into what are the other accountabilities? And what are the other transparencies? You can look back at our officer-involved shooting reports from 2004 and 2005, look at them today. They still have the framework, but the level of detail, the level of articulation, the level of analysis is, I would argue, tenfold more. Same basic structure, but the efforts of this commission to be that oversight panel, to be the head of this organization, to express it, and it's not just its meetings, but its execution as a board of directors. He led in the model. He made the playbook. And the commissions that have followed him continue to move this organization. I am continually reminded that as we look at the last 2 to 3 years, one of the most tumultuous times in our history in policing and across America, the reforms this organization has continued to promote, lead and adopt, and show other agencies a path forward is built in the history of John Mack, and a belief that yes, we can and we will achieve, and let's do it all together. Finally, to the Mack family. Anthony, thank you for your continued leadership in the Human Relations Commission, for your constant smile. You have your dad's smile, you got your dad's laugh, and just you continue his legacy well here in the city. To Deborah and Andrea, thank you for coming here today and being here. To the Mack family, thank you for the sacrifice, not just when he was here as a commission. He did walk into a suspicious group. But he also, his I think, understanding of the department changed over his 8+ years afterwards. And this department embraced that as well. But during that turmoil, that was after 36 years on the Urban League. That was on a man who was on his way to Palm Springs. And I can understand why the mayor is now here, you're down there. So it's But thank you for that commitment, for that dedication. It takes an entire family to do this work. And so today, this legacy and the naming of this room is as much about the Mack family as it is about John. And just know that we hold you in such tremendous regard. There is no one else that, when you look at the structure of this department, you look at organizational values and how we go about our work. It's about people, but they have to work within an organization and a makeup. This is the head of this department. It has its core values. It has its mission. And it has a man who showed the world, who showed commissioners, present and future, a path of how we can achieve equality, fairness, a department that meets the needs of all Angelinos, that knows its history, acknowledges it, but also knows that the heart of police officers, men and women, and the sacrifice that they make far outweigh the shortfalls, and in the process of leading this organization, can balance all of that. As I close, I had the good fortune in my appointment by Mayor Garcetti as the Chief of Police to enjoy John Mack's support. And we talked, and I want to thank Fred Booker for organizing our efforts to hear from him and to be guided and get counsel from him. And I too, Mayor, will always remember the privilege of being present and having an opportunity to speak at his services. And I'll say now what I said then, and that as I pray in these last 4 years, and however much moving forward, whatever my role, is that I always have John Mack in my ear, because there's a man that cared about people, cared about truth and righteousness, and had a model of accountability, transparency, and fairness that achieves such a wonderful balance that I'll always envy. And I do reflect as we move forward each day in these times, and what would John have to say about this? So God bless him. I know he's home up there. He's probably got a good golf game going on, and but I hope he's shining. As he looks down here, that he's proud of what the Mack family has achieved and the influence that you'll have for generations to come. And thank you all for this opportunity. God bless.
Thank you, Chief. And now it's the opportunity to hear from the Mack family. And speaking on their behalf is the gentleman that we've heard a little bit about, Mr. Anthony Mack, the current president of the Human Relations Commission. Anthony.
Good afternoon, distinguished audience here. That I know all of you have extremely busy, hectic schedules, trying to solve the challenges of our city, and God bless all of you, and thank you for all that you do each and every day. Before I go any further, I'd like to first introduce John Mack's legacy. His one only granddaughter, if you'll stand up, Gianna Marie Mack. So you can probably see the picture up front. One of the daughters, Deborah Rebecca Mack, she flew all the way out from Washington, D.C. to be here with us today. And I'd like to just put a footnote to mention that Andrea Mack, she extends her appreciation. She unfortunately had a slip and fall that she just needed to just take it easy, but she'll be fine. Next is Gabriel John Wesley Mack, named after both his grandfathers. And then the first, the oldest, Anthony Brian Mack II. Respectfully, I want to thank you, Chief, Mayor Villaraigosa, all city council members, Brother Barack, we go way back. Thank you all for what you're doing on the police commission. I've seen in the shadows of Dad the few meetings I've attended. It's no easy task, as it would be a coin toss, which is the rougher audience in the boardroom here or in the city council chambers. I've seen both. you got your work cut out for you, but it's all worth it, right? I mean, we all have a stake in this game, directly, indirect through our families. But on behalf of the Mack family, on behalf, frankly, of the entire Crenshaw community and Los Angeles community, we are so grateful and humbled and honored that you have thought and decided to name this distinguished room that's just a mover and shaker in terms of policy and the way that we go forward in the city of Los Angeles and frankly throughout the country, to name this room after our father, our grandfather. We're just so touched on so many different levels. Francisco, I see in the audience so many faces here. We thank you. Mayor, you had mentioned how the police commission was never the same. It just changed from Dad's involvement. But I got to tell you, our father, our grandfather, he changed for the better. He further evolved. kind of more well-rounded, great leader. Hey, Capri. Thank you for coming. It was kind of funny as you told that story. Well, I saw the other side of the reflection when Dad came home, and I remember that day when Dad came home, and it was very rare that Dad would bring work home to the household. When he came home, Dad was Dad. We experienced a whole different side of him than you've probably never seen. But that day, I remember he came home and he did say a few choice words as he was unloading his pockets on his dresser. And I could tell he was a bit, he was a deep thought. He really was. He shared it with my mom, his wife. Dad was a rock. She was the real rock. But he had open dialogue with her that, this is, you believe this? I mean, he was a bit, frustrated. He said, yeah, I can't believe it. Kind of, it's out here now, and, now I'm kind of on Front Street, so I guess I've got to move on this, right? But he was real, kind of disbelief, and, because any of you that knew my father before he was put on the police commission, you knew he was quite a warrior. He was very committed to the underserved communities, as he should have been, and as we all are. But as has been mentioned, being from South Carolina, I mean, he was in this battle to where he is today, to the dirt. But he decided to move forward, and even when he moved forward, I think he was still moving forward kind of with the jaundiced approach. He wasn't completely in, but he was saying, well, we're going to give this a shot, right? And as he started his new role, and I remember the first week, huge box, stack full of files showed up at the front door, and he's thinking, I'm supposed to be in Palm Desert, retired, right? And I've got this homework, right? And I remember he made a call, like, what am I going to do with all this? And, I don't know who he spoke to. Probably spoke to you, Richard. I'm sure you told him, what you're supposed to do is start reading. So he got to work to Dad's credit, and literally over a few months, I started to notice a change in our father, and then, a few years, just his outlook. Something about when you see the other side of the coin, even, a fierce warrior like our father, our grandfather, his outlook on deciding matters just started to become just real, like, from a high level, just a real different approach. I thought it made him a much better leader for the sake of the underserved communities, to really be able to go back and to lead, to communicate. Listen, there's two sides to every story. Let's give this time. So there's a lot of battles, Chief, you recall. There's a lot of tense moments. But I say all that to say that it made him a better person. And what went through our father transcended through, what you see, this, who we are today, all credit to our mother and our father. And so on that, I'd like to say thank you. And if you have a few minutes, I'd like to invite Debbie up. She can say a few words. Debbie, why don't you come on up and say a few words?
Good afternoon. I was hoping my brother wouldn't call me out since I'm still really jet lagged, but thank you all for being here. Chief Moore, Mayor Villaraigosa, Councilwoman President Rodriguez, Councilmember Price, my dear friend Capri, I don't see where you went, Dr. John Harold, who cared for our parents, dear Officer Chris Waters, who kindly called me up this morning. Thank you all for being here, and others who I'm leaving out. We appreciate you, and I'll just leave with this, because as they say in African American churches, like, just gonna speak but a minute more. But this past Sunday, or was it Monday? My days are off. The 26th was our parents, would have been their 63rd anniversary, and I was on the phone with my brother and my sister and my mom's surviving twin who lives in Michigan. And I have a real quick story. My dad, I'll never forget the story. I don't know if the rest of the family knows, but the reason why our parents got married in a shotgun wedding in our grandmother's church in Elberton, Georgia, way back in the day was because of our dad's civil rights work and because there was a warrant out for his arrest from the Georgia State Police. And the only reason why he hadn't been caught, arrested, in jail, listen, nephews and nieces, is because his name was wrong on the warrant. They had him down as Johnny Mack. So I just sort of leave you with that. So my parents had to get married quick, fast, in a hurry after only knowing each other 6 months, move out here. They landed in Ventura County thanks to my dad's mentor, Whitney M. Young, Sr., who arranged for our dad to finish his MSW studies at a former hospital for troubled young men, which is now Cal State Channel Islands. So just a little bit of our family legacy wanted to leave with you. And, fast forward, 63 years later, here we are. So thank you all for your support, your love, and your care. We do truly appreciate you. Thank you for this honor.
Thank you, Tony and Debbie. Appreciate your comments. Before I go any further, I'd be remiss if I did not thank the people who put this together. I didn't do it. From my staff, Sarah Bell. Sarah's in the back. From the Chief of Staff's office, Officer Sarah Faden. Sarah is right over there. And our partner in crime, Officer Nugs, as we call her, Nugs Mazzino. Thank you both. Without their help, it wouldn't have happened. So thank you, the three of you. We really appreciate it. You made it all happen. We're going to take some photos after we do all this, so the speakers and those who want to get some photos of the Mack family don't leave. The food will still be there. Don't worry about it. So we'd like to take some photos. With that said, I'd like to have the Mack family stand and then look at the screen.
So beginning our next meeting, that we get back into this room will be known as the John W. Mack Police Commission hearing room. It will be listed as such on our agendas going forward. So in perpetuity, if this building lasts as long as Parker Center did, there'll be generations of people